Hi friends, this is your pal Scott Garibay, and today we're going to talk about my table time at Shards of Ymir, the Shadowdark tabletop role-playing game session that I played at Philadelphia Area Gaming Expo in January 2025. That was run by DM Bloodsworth, right? You can check out his channel below. Just check in the link below, and you can bounce over to his great channel, Unchained and Unscripted RPG Reviews. And he's just like me. He commentates on Dungeons and Dragons and has a great channel, and you should really check it out. And so I went to Philadelphia Area Gaming Expo, and I signed up for a bunch of panels and 0 games, right? And I'm not going to talk about that in this video because I want to stay focused. But I actually played in 2 games when I was at Philadelphia Area Gaming Expo. And the reason why is people were like, hey, Scott, I'm glad you're here. Why don't you join my game, right? So I got to play in another game. And then DM's Bluddworth was like, hey, Scott, come play in my game. And I was like, bet, I'm in. And I really appreciated the invitation. It meant a lot to me. And I have to say, so he was running Shadowdark. If you don't know, Shadowdark is the hotness right now. It's Dungeons and Dragons, and then it's Shadowdark, and nothing else is in front of Shadowdark right now. Nothing in the OSR or indie space has as much heat, as much excitement, as much buy-in from the Dungeons and Dragons community as Shadowdark. It really is astonishing, right? And so, when I showed up, it was a full table. There's only 6 there's 6 tickets for each, thing. And he had a full table, right? And the reason why is he was, oh, and by the way, I have a lot of thoughts on this game. So this is just some of my thoughts in this video. So just be aware, this isn't my full experience. You'll get more videos on this, but I do want to talk about this. So one, the table was full, right? So one of the things he was doing was he was very smart, and he was running a game that's in high demand, right? And the demand was there. I was literally the 7th player at the table. And I want to say thank you to every single player who was gracious enough to squeeze me in. There was still, actually, Philadelphia Area Gaming Expo. They had very, nice round tables, great space, and nobody was like shoved in or anything. But I was the 7th player at the table, right? It also speaks to DM Bloodsworth's ability as a dungeon master, that he was able to handle all 7 people well, right? So one, he was playing a game that's in high demand, and so he was literally doing good work here, right? I would say he's doing the Lord's work in that people wanted to play Shadowdark, and he had his session right there, and he was playing Shadowdark, right? He was running Shadowdark. So he was filling a very real, very immediate demand, and that's pretty cool. And I have to say, I'm a Gary Gygax fan to the end. I am the biggest fan of Gary Gygax that's ever lived, and so I love Dungeons and Dragons, right? And we have this problem too, right? Right now we can't. Now actually, Shadowdark has a problem where you can't buy the printed books. You just literally can't get them, right? You could go to Kelsey's own website, and they'll be like, no, we can't get them here. I'm like, well, where could we possibly get them if you don't have them, right? So Shadowdark has some problems. They can't print their books. That's a real problem. They need a Brian Bloom over there, right? Seriously, Kelsey needs to get an actual, she's handling the creative great. She's not handling commercial well, right? She needs a Brian Bloom. Okay, so, but the problem there, and Dungeons and Dragons has this problem. They need dungeon masters, right? And we don't have enough people stepping up to do it. So DM's Bloodworth was stepping up and doing the good work of fulfilling an actual immediate demand, right? And the other thing is he ran multiple games of Shadowdark, and that was wanted by the people who were showing up, right? So he really, DM's Bloodworth, by being there, being active, and doing his part, made the entire con better. For probably, I think, like 20, close to 30 people were blessed by him having this adventure ready and running it multiple times. Okay, all right. So that was good, right? And also in this video, I'm talking about everything he did that I loved, that I thought was really well. well done. The other thing is he was extremely well prepared. He was on time. He was ahead of time, right? He had his table set up, and he had a map of Hyperborea on the table. Hyperborea, wait a second, are you playing Shadowdark? What are you talking about? Hyperborea, that's Conan's realm. Well, this is another thing that was really cool. He made Shadowdark his, right? Which is exactly what it says to do in the book. And you can do the same thing with Dungeons and Dragons, right? Well, actually, that's kind of ironic. I'm going to excuse DM Bluddworth for stealing a Dungeons and Dragons canon setting, right? Where is Conan canon to? Dungeons and Dragons, like literally Dungeons and Dragons. You could buy a canon Dungeons and Dragons, Conan the Barbarian adventure. It's 100% canon, right? So, and the reality is, DM's Bluddworth was bending Shadowdark to run Hyperborea, but the reality is Hyperborea is outside of Shadowdark canon, right? Also, is there Shadowdark canon? Like, I don't know. Like, I don't think there is. I don't think there's any Shadowdark canon, because everything within Shadowdark actually is D&D canon, right? So Shadowdark is a copy game of Dungeons and Dragons, so it is, so everything there is, you're just dealing with D&D canon. I don't think there is any Shadowdark canon. Please correct me if I'm wrong there. I don't think there's a single monster in Shadowdark that isn't in Dungeons and Dragons. That's fascinating. Okay. However, DM Bluddworth made it work. The Conan setting was excellent, right? And so basically, why was it excellent? There were some problems with it, right? But in this video, I'm only going to talk about what I liked, and there was a lot. Like, what I liked actually fills more than this one video. All right, so one, he knew the world, so he was very comfortable in the Conan, and he ran it very quickly and with a lot of confidence, and I like that. And he ended on time, right? He told a complete story with a beginning, a middle, and an end. Now, that you're like, well, Scott, that's no big deal. It is a big deal. I went to PAX Unplugged. 50,000 people there, right? And I got in a 2-hour Shadowdark game that did not end on time. It had a beginning, a middle, and no end. And you can hear the entire story of that game right here on this channel, right? Look at my December content. And DM's Bluddworth did what the other Shadowdark Dungeon Master did not. He had a beginning, a middle, and an end. Also, his story made sense, okay? The other thing he had was he had this really fascinating concept where we would go forward, right? We started in an inn, and then we went forward through the narrative, right? And so he would say, okay, you can take the middle path, the right path, or the left path, right? And then what was cool is you would get to a break point where you would choose, and then you would be able to see if you chose the right path. So there was this one point where we were going for these mountains, and we took the middle path up to the highest peak, right? And we looked to the right, and there were packs of wolves. And we looked to the left, and there were trolls, right? So we actually were fortunate and picked the path where there was no battles, right? That was pretty cool. I really, really, really liked that. I thought that was excellent. And get this. Now, I do this in my online game. I use pictures to paint. I use pictures from different sources to paint a visual picture for my players, right? It's harder to do that as a physical table, right? Because you got to flip through books and shit, And when you're doing it with Dungeons and Dragons, it's very easy, right? Because you can just say, hey, look, point at the. You can pull up the book and point at the book. You can't do that with Shadowdark. Shadowdark doesn't have good art, and Shadowdark doesn't have any cool pictures you can point to, right? Because it's like old crusty 80s art, right? So like you can't really do that. But DM Bluddworth fixed that, right? And so what he did is on 3x5 cards, he printed these super cool color pictures that really, and I love this. He was like, here's the picture of, what you're seeing. And it wasn't exactly what you're seeing. It was just evocative of what you were seeing. And I think that's great. And he would like say, okay, you know, here's you guys on this mountain pass. Now, you know, the adventures on there is not you, but you could imagine yourself in there. And then he would bring out these really nice, colorful 3x5s and say, you know, it's WYSIWYG. It's what you see is what you get, except for this one point, right? And that way he could get really powerful, evocative pieces of art and said, this gives you the idea, right? And I think that's the best way to do art, because there's so much amazing art out there right now. And so you want to get the idea across. You don't want to spend a huge amount of time getting every little detail in the picture right. You want to pick out art that is dramatic and dynamic. And that's exactly what he did. There's so much I loved about what DM Bluddworth did with his Shadowdark game. That's not even everything I think I really dug. But that's a lot of it. That's a lot of it, right? So that's everything I really liked in DM Bluddworth's Shards of Ymir. So thank you for letting me share this with you. Highly recommend getting your butt over to Philadelphia Area Gaming Expo. It's on like Donkey Kong in January 2026. Be there or be square. Every single word you just heard is my humble opinion, nothing more, nothing less. The important part is when I get to hear your humble opinion when you get in the comments and send your traffic. Please consider liking and subscribing and have a fetch millennium.